Welcome to another episode of Voting for Bernie While Black. I'm your host, Elise Lane. I had the good fortune last week of catching up with Kate Nash. She's the voice behind the widely followed Twitter handle, blackwomen4bernie. And she was kind enough to talk about her Twitter handle and her support for Sanders' campaign. She also addressed a campaign issue that pundits generally don't ask black folk about, and that's U.S. foreign policy. Kate has quite a bit to say about Sanders' foreign policy platform as well as Clinton's foreign policy creds. We'll get to all of that in a moment, but first, I would be remiss if I passed up this opportunity to talk about the now presumptive GOP nominee Donald Trump. After last Tuesday's primaries, GOP voters made it clear that Trump was their man. And since his decisive victories, the DNC as well as Hillary Clinton supporters have gone into overdrive to cast Trump as a danger that only Hillary Clinton can prevent. Now we hear in that argument the usual litany of dangers that we're all facing over the next 4 years. World War III, for example, the Second Great Recession, a completely reconfigured Supreme Court of the United States, and thus the consequent overturning of Roe v. Wade, of gay rights, and the complete evisceration, of course, of the Voting Rights Act. Now, I agree that all of these things are in play and are on the line, and that Trump is, a pretty dangerous demagogue. But if we step back and look at the overall election, we have to acknowledge, I think, first of all, that all of these things were already in danger, and that the ineptness of the Democratic Party itself helped to create the current crisis. It's not just a Republican-generated crisis, it's our crisis, right? I mean, at what point during this primary season, for example, will President Obama's first 2 years in office be called out as being, by and large, phenomenal failures? We lost a Democratic majority, and we lost it for a reason, and in ways that really set us on this particularly dangerous path that we're on today. If we also step back and view the political landscape, we also have to acknowledge that we'd be making the same crisis arguments and facing the same dangers if any of the other 16 GOP candidates had been chosen by the GOP electorate. Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Carly Fiorina, etc. Every single one of these folks is quote-unquote dangerous. Every single one of them stood quietly in the face of Trump's most egregious claims and even pandered to the Donald, right? And every single one of them openly declared war on social and economic justice. So Trump is not a terribly unique danger in the context of the GOP presidential field. That being the case, maybe we should wonder what kind of political work this narrative of danger and crisis is doing. Now, as I see it, the Trump is dangerous, let's all line up behind Clinton narrative is being used to shut off dissent or counsel political quietism, and thus to keep us from asking really critical questions like, for example, what kind of danger does the frontrunner herself pose? Why does the Democratic Party always find itself every 4 years running on a crisis mentality? I mean, what has the party failed to do over the course of 4 years that has brought us to this crisis, and why? So let's start asking questions about this narrative. Anyway, as I stated earlier, I caught up with Kate Nash, who's been feeling the burn and burning things down through her Twitter handle, blackwomen4bernie. Take a listen.
I started Black Women for Bernie last year, right around the time that Senator Sanders first announced that he would run for the presidency in 2016. I realized the media began to state that he had very little connection at all and very little support to the black community. I knew about Senator Sanders. I did not know until he became a presidential candidate just how involved he'd been in grassroots efforts for the civil rights movement, and his stellar record in the Congress, working with the Black Congressional Congress as well. Jesse Jackson's campaign, also the fact that President Barack Obama, while he was senator, also campaigned for Senator Sanders during his run for his Senate seat, I should say. So I, like a lot of people, began to really become aware of who he was and why he was such a fantastic person to be running for this office. And I couldn't help but want to support him. So I started Black Women for Bernie. I wanted to name it Black Women for Bernie because when the attacks from the mainstream media began, they really started to try to triangulate the support that Bernie had with Hillary Clinton's core, supposedly core constituency, which would have been the Black community, women, especially women over a certain age group as well. So, I could see what they were trying to do. I said they're doing the same thing that they were doing back in 2008 when Barack Obama was running for president, and they did everything they could possibly do. It was so dirty. What not just the media was doing, but the way her campaign was running there. I pushed back on that because I knew their campaign strategy against Barack Obama. So that was my intent, my effort behind starting this Twitter. I also worked in conjunction with a number of other female groups for Bernie, working and assisting with grassroots efforts, not just phone banking, but canvassing, supporting other groups as well. I have no direct affiliation at all with the campaign. I like that because it gives me freedom to be kind of a sub-surrogate in some ways. I can say the things that they can't, and yes, I feel free to be able to express my support for Bernie Sanders fully. Definitely tried to keep his supporters encouraged, but also vigilant about why, never forgetting why we're supporting this man in his run for presidency.
I asked Kate if she would talk about what lies beyond the Bernie campaign and to speak to his idea of political revolution.
This revolution is bigger than Bernie Sanders. He's always said that it's not me, it's us, because it is huge. It took off because I believe that it was something that was, I believe Barack Obama whet our appetite for something that was very populist and very progressive and its flavor, but it lacked the substance. It wasn't, it was still too establishment. And so it left us empty. So there was nothing there. And so he fired up a bunch of young people and independents and progressive Democrats during his campaign, and then that core body of people was kind of left scratching their heads like, what's going on? And we, as I'm part of that movement, didn't have that progressive leader that we thought we had in Barack. So here comes Bernie. But you know what? Bernie is not Barack. Man, all you got to do is go on YouTube. See him talking decades ago. It's this, close your eyes, it's the same man saying the same thing. And it's just that same progressive, tireless message that it's timeless because we're having the same issues. We're having the same issues. This man got fired up, man, when he was a young guy in the 60s, standing up for students to have, unsegregated housing in Chicago.
Finally, I asked Kate if she would say a word or two about the foreign policy issues that she's taking with her to the voting booth.
Bernie Sanders is clear. He will emphasize diplomacy and a more measured approach to the way he handles military decisions. He would take his position as commander-in-chief seriously. He values a strong military, but he also values peace. And to me, that's really important in a leader for our country. I mean, I just value his decision to vote against the Iraq War. Hillary voted for the war. He's shown through his actions, not just his words, that he is someone that has the understanding, the wisdom, and the foresight to lead our country. And I think there are many military, enlisted military that support Bernie Sanders, and there's a reason for that. Hillary has shown she had a chance to show us how she leads. As Secretary of State, she ushered in, her decisions ushered in ISIS. It ushered in the instability in Libya, in that region. She has shown time and time again that she has no balance when it comes to foreign affairs and leading. So I really see Senator Sanders as the kind of leader that will bring our country into a place of respectability again around the world, and someone that our military troops can trust, that aren't going to continue to put us in perpetual warfare and regime change wars. I come from a long line of military people. My dad was a naval officer. He was in the Navy for decades, 27 years. My mom worked at the Pentagon. This is a big deal for me. So I appreciate the fact that he takes this seriously, because the Black community and people of color disproportionately make up enlisted troops. We have higher numbers, and especially those that are combat related. So getting into these perpetual regime change wars disproportionately affect our communities. So I do appreciate having Senator Sanders express such a strong leadership in his foreign policy. I love the fact as well that he wants to close Guantanamo Bay. That's huge. And also, the way Senator Sanders approaches leadership, he never disconnects his humanity from that, ever. I love the fact that he's said over and over again that he doesn't want the support of Hillary's mentor, Henry Kissinger. And I love that. I mean, again, he makes distinctions very clearly between how he thinks and how his leadership is, and his decisions versus Hillary Clinton. It's like night and day, in my personal opinion. This is our chance to cast a vote for a politician that I never thought that would run for president. I'm so glad that he did. I wish he'd done it earlier, but I'm excited. And so, yes, I feel very good about going into the voting booth and casting my vote for Bernie. I will not vote for Hillary Clinton. I am one of those Bernie or bust people. Black Women for Bernie will keep burning strong.
That's Kate Nash of Black Women for Bernie. Open your Twitter app, look her up, and follow her lead. Thank you all for listening. Be well. Theme music by John Brown.